Can you help me, Bill?
I can.
Oh, good. Great. Hele staff, Jim and Jim. Hele. With Mary, can say. Mary. You can help us. Mary. What's that? I think I should take to see him. You will always need an ice quit you. Because when I get to ice quit you, always need the one company that's welcome. But how could you need it? Need on the product, need on the quality. I think yam the delicate and the quality. Need on it, how could you need on it? How could you need on it? Challenge need on it. Tongue. I jab here, the cherry need on it. The solelo need on the delicate and the quality. I jab here. Be seated. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bill, Louise. One that they did it. I guess the song is to open up the day, the thoughts, the mind, to set and prepare for our visitors, our guests, our elders. And thank you, Bill, for supporting in the opening. But Doreen Pelkey from Terra, the East Side Reserve, you talk about leadership. I think she's a leader in the community, particularly in her family, in the longhouse. For those of you that are familiar with the longhouse, the knowledge and the teaching she's gathered from her time in the Saanich, in the interior, to provide not only to your family, but to the families in the Coast Salish territories. Many of her teachings have been directed to our family, to the Sam family. But we appreciate what she directs to us in form of what we call snapanak, the teaching. That's what we talked about in the prayers, snapanak, teaching. We talk about how we work together. I think a good example of that is the Lama with the children in their community. So just to look at that, Tse Tsa Watle, we talk about Tse Tsa Watle. And the St. Jonathan, Tse Tsa Watle. Stengacha, Nisana, Kwanangito. The same, everyone coming together to help one another. And we've asked Doreen to come and spend this little brief time with us. So Heichka, we thank you, Doreen, for making time to come over. Thank you, Eric, for bringing your mother down, and our elders from Suk, Bert, and Lawina. And our visitors from Yakuchi, we want to thank them for taking some time out to come and sit with us. And we have an elder from Yakuchi, Alfred, is the elder, from Yakuchi. They come to listen to what's going to be provided today. I want to thank Virginia for the organization of today and the past. Thank Kay Levis for coming down from Cowichan, Louise, and the other visitors. So we leave it. Doreen Pelkey, if you would, please. This my chair?
Somebody push it way over there.
Good afternoon, everybody. You heard Greg calling me by my Indian name that was placed on me from the Fraser Valley. I am Doreen Pelkey. My Indian name is Lamlamalwit, and the name was given to me by my relatives from the Fraser Valley. I'm a Stalo, what they call Stalo person. I married into the saltwater people in 1948. I married into the saltwater people. But I'm still, to me, I feel like, like where I was born is what I am, a Stalo person. And that means a river, eh? I'm a river person. And that name was given to me by my elders when I entered into the longhouse at an early age. And my family from the Fraser Valley came over and reclaimed me and told the people from the island exactly who I was and how I was going to be conducting myself by marrying into the people of Saanich, the South Reserve. My husband was Harold Gabriel Pelkey. His grandfather, when I first came into South, was a hereditary chief, Chief Louis Pelkey. And memories of when I first came to this island, all of us Native people were harvesting people, that followed the harvest of picking strawberries or picking whatever was in season. We followed the harvest all over to the state of Washington, and we took our families with us. When I first landed here, I came with my family, went to Eastern Washington and then met up with my husband and came home with them and lived in Cowichan area for a whole year or a couple of years. That's where my husband's grandparents on his mother was from. So we lived with the grandmother for a couple of years before I moved to Saanich in 1950 when my daughter was born, my oldest daughter. When I landed on, there only used to be CPR boats that came from, across the waters from Seattle. And at that time in the 40s, late 40s, we weren't allowed to ride up on the upper deck. We were allowed only to ride down as cargo down the bottom deck for where all the cars were and everything, and that was in the late 40s, eh? And I had no idea that that's the way things were at that time. I didn't understand that because that's the first time I came to the island, so I didn't know that was the way things were. We went through a lot of hardships when I have 10 children. I have 8 daughters and 2 sons. My son's sitting here, my oldest son. And we traveled, back and forth, picked berries, and even had a couple of my daughters born in the state of Washington at the berry camp. And my son here was born in Cowichan, and we passed by the bridge one time, a silver bridge up Duncan there, and I said, "Hey, that's where you were born, right there." He said, "Why was I born there?" And this was just last year, Why was I born there? I said, because I didn't want to be in the hospital, and Christmas was coming up in a couple of days. I said, I didn't want to be in the hospital on Christmas, so I just said to him, their dad, I said, I'm not going to the hospital. I said, I'll just stay home. Your grandmother can deliver this, whatever it was, coming. That was it. So he was born at his great-great-great-grandfather's home in Cowichan by the Silver Bridge or the Black Bridge, whatever. And he didn't know that, and I told him, that's where you were born. He said, why the hell was I born there? But this is, like some of the things that used to happen, and, and there was really a lot of things I didn't understand about how things were on the island, and in the past it was like an English town, an English city where, a lot of people still believed, and there was a lot of prejudice. I mean, there was still prejudice, but, in that past it was really, really, wasn't just the young people, it was, people that had authority to have stores, doctors' offices, the theaters, and everything that, that we used at that time. We weren't allowed to chose a doctor, and they had small little rooms in the corner of the offices where they treated Native people. We weren't allowed to sit with the rest of the public. And in the theaters, you're allowed to only sit on the upper balcony in a certain area in the balcony. I don't know whether Bill remembers this, but in Cowichan, they used to sit the Native people up in the balcony, like in a certain spot, and they never was allowed to sit with the public. Dental, everything that we had required was worked like that for years. I think it wasn't until my second youngest daughter was born that we were allowed to choose a doctor that we wanted to have as a physician for our family. Before that, we weren't allowed to choose, like that's the way the government worked things. I was glad that Greg, I didn't know that he had to run out to get his drum, because I got my drum here. And I never know when I get asked to go somewhere and people ask me to do something. They never tell me ahead of time what I'm supposed to be doing. They just say, could you be there, could you be there and do the opening, for us. And the drum, like Greg and my nephew Bill there, the drum, or the heartbeat of our people, hey? That's the heartbeat of our people. And even though, you're not Native, or, the culture is totally different compared to ours, but when you hear the drum, it's just like, wow. You can feel it. You can feel the vibration of the drum, like no matter if you're not into the spiritual longhouse like we are. As young people, you heard Greg saying, like that him and his brothers and his family learned a lot from our family, our immediate family. When Greg and his brothers, when they were at a young age, their parents decided to bring them to our longhouse, to put them into our longhouse, to have them reborn again because of the lifestyle that they were sort of falling into that wasn't acceptable by his family, his dad and his parents and his grandmother, who was still alive. So as a young person, him and his brothers lived in our longhouse for the whole maybe 3 months, while we sat with them day and night and sang songs and sang and just meditated with the family, just to help them to get their life on the right track again. And I always say the longhouse for us is not a house of punishment. Every time I go into the longhouse and they're bringing in young people, and I get up and say, the house is not a house of punishment. This is an honoring house where we honor our young people. This is a spiritual house. Everybody goes to church, like different denominations of churches that everybody chooses to belong to. But our house is our church It's our spiritual house where we worship the Creator in that house. Everything we do in that house, we pray before things happen there. When we go out to the woods, we pray for everything that we take out of the earth to bring to the young people to hold in their hand for the rest of the winter. Everything we do has to be prayed for before, so that the young people like Greg at the time he was in his teens would feel that kind of a strength, not only from us, but all the elders, like our children's family here from Beecher Bay, all support each other. From all the different longhouses come together and they support one another and gather wherever there's something happening. Everybody comes to the longhouse and we all sit around the longhouse around the fire, and we sing for all of our people that are singing, and then we have something to eat. We pray for our food and go back in and do some more singing. And that's what happens all through the winter. Not only to them, my whole family is spiritual dancers, what they call spiritual dancers. Myself, I'm still a spiritual dancer for over 60 years. I've been a spiritual dancer, and I still practice that. And it's a place, our house is a place for healing. Whenever someone's having a struggle in their lives with whatever it is that's going on with our young people, and you don't have to be embarrassed to come into the house and sit down and cry your heart out in the longhouse. And then we gather up and we get drums and we sing for that young person that's struggling with whatever it is that's happening with her or to him in their lives. It's a healing house where we do that all the way through the winter and try to bring our young people, because there's no alcohol and there's no drugs, not even any smoking cigarettes in our longhouse allowed. It's a drug-free and a alcohol-free house. And even the anger, if someone's angry about something or angry with somebody that's in there, and the old people used to say, if you want to be angry, you hang that hat outside the door. There's a nail out there. Hang it out there. And if you still want to hang on to that anger, when you go, you pick it up and take it with you, but you're not going to bring it in this house because it's not allowed to be in here. We're all together and we work together. We love one another. We tell each other that we care for each other. And it's spoken in our native tongue, just like Greg was speaking in a language that they use in the longhouse. And our family right here, my kids are Scran. Nothing is done in the white man's language. All of us inherit something from our elders in the past. Each one of us are inheriting something that belongs to a family that follows in a family line. Like there's different songs, there's different masks, there's different things that we use for the longhouse that certain people are entitled to use, and we all support each other. We all go to someone and say, we need your help. We need you to come here and help us get through what we're going to do. I was just telling Greg a little while ago that our family is going to do what they call a brush off with our family because of all the drama that our family's been going through for a few months since before the new year came in. We lost quite a bit of our family, and some of our family hasn't been able to pick themselves up yet. You know, they haven't been able to pick themselves up. Because when you lose somebody that you love and you care for dearly in your family, it's hard to get through. They always say, you know, once they go, you have to let them go. But still, there are some of our families that are really in grieving, and they don't know how to get out of that depth they're in. It's just like a hole. They need to surface. So I was telling Greg that our family is going to have a brush off on the 10th of September, and we're going to pick up some of our families that have been in that despair for a few months now. And you know, they say you listen to different people talking about people who are in stress, you know, how stress is taking down so many of our young people. And there's been nothing for older people like myself, you know, who were in residential school to pick us up. There was no counseling in the time that I was growing up for people who went to residential school, and all the suffering that we went through when we were in residential school. And even my children, my son here, went that suffering when he was in residential school, him and his sisters. And it's only a short time now since we've been offered help to counsel ourselves to try and get through the garbage that we packed for many years, you know. I didn't realize I was packing all this garbage. You know, I'm an elder, and I'm supposed to be the one, like today, passing on these teachings to people, and yet I was packing all of that, and I didn't know that. I never got to grieve, you know, for a lot of our siblings that passed, my mother, and for different families in our family, that I didn't know that was what it was about until they spoke to me about it. And then I finally realized, wow, that's what has been eating at me, you know, like when you don't get rid of garbage like that, it eats you up, you know. And I think the only thing that saved me was the longhouse. If I didn't have a place, you know, to go and to sit and cry and sing and dance, and that I wouldn't be here today. I would not be here today if I didn't have that place to go to like our church. It's like a church to us, where I could go there and be free and not look down on it as somebody who, what the hell's the matter with her, you know, like, and, you know, because they look at people, and not a thing that happens to you, you know, like when you're come down with illnesses like arthritis and other diabetes and everything else that comes down on our people, is no matter what they give you to take, it damages other parts of your organs. That it's good for one thing, but it's bad for another part of your organs. And that's what happened to me. I was on arthritic medicine for a while, and my liver got damaged. And I was really upset because I'm not a alcohol drinker. I never smoked or never went into drugs or anything, and yet that's what happened to me. And I was really mad. I was really mad when the doctor told me. I said, you know, if I ended up in an accident or whatever and died, and they'd say, oh, you know, that woman's liver was shot, so she must have been an alcohol. And an alcoholic. That's why her liver's shot, like, and I never drink alcohol, like, and never ever smoked a cigarette. And yet I got like that, hey, so like I said, like if it hadn't been for the longhouse, I would not be here today, because when people say, how are you doing, Mrs. Pelkey, like, and I'm still walking. I'm having this hard time walking, but I'm walking, like, I'm okay. And I tell stories about my kids, even my children, my grandchildren even say, I don't even like to go out after a weekend because I know my grandmother's telling stories about us. He says, I always think, I wonder what my grandma's talking about. She's talking about us, I know, because we're out drinking, drugging or whatever, like, and I'm telling stories about them, like even I was telling Eric, my one grandson OD'd, and I would always tell a story about him, like, and he says to me, why do you do that, like, and I said, well, it was so odd, like, first time any one of our grandchildren did that, I said, like, and my daughter said, well, he's in the hospital, and she was upset because of what he did. So I went there to see him, and I walked down the corridor, like when we were coming down here, and there was doors all over the place. And I was looking down there, I was thinking, he's in an institution, like, I was kind of scared, because I'd never been in an institution before, so I was walking down there trying not to look around, and he poked his head in the door there, and he said, Grandma. I looked real quick. His hair was all dyed and red and orange and yellow and everything, like, and it was just standing up like that. Oh my God, Grandma. Christ, is that what happens when you OD? I said, he come over and he hugged me. He said, what? Like, and I said, well, your hair is all different colors. Is that what happens when you OD? No, Grandma. So I said to him, I said, when I go to the youth workshops and I talk about, people who are in a bad way and choosing to try and do away with their lives, I said, I talk about my grandson who did that, but I make it a funny story after, just laugh about it after, but it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny when it happened, like I was worried and crying because I didn't want him to die. But the ones that indulge in stuff they're not supposed to, his sons were saying to him one time, he said, you know what, Grandma doesn't even need her canes. I used to walk with 2 canes, and I don't even think she needs it, Dad. She just use it for a weapon when she comes home. Because I got there one time, one of the grandchildren's place, and his kids were running around outside, and I said to them, where's your dad? Dad, great grandma's here, he didn't want me to go in. Dad, great grandma's here, like, and I said, where is he? He's inside there, Grandma, like, and I went in, and where are they? And they're in that room. There was a little laundry room in the corner there, and I went there, and I kicked the door open, just booted the door, and the door flew open. Here comes all that smoke, like smoke coming out of there. I had my cane, and I started swinging. Swinging it at them, and they're saying, holy shit, don't hit us, don't hit me, and I'm like, and I said, I'm calling you in tomorrow. I was telling their girlfriends, I said, stupid little ignorant. Your kids are walking around here and there you are. I said, I'm calling you in tomorrow. I said that to my grandson's swimming. I said, I'm sorry, Grandma, I'm sorry. You know, like, but that's, you know, like, just the way I am, you know, because I'm concerned about, you know, what the young people are doing and worried about them. And I keep reminding them and reminding the younger ones, you know, about how their grandpa was. And the ones that are struggling, I just said, you know, your grandpa he worshipped the ground you walked on. Grandpa worshipped the ground you guys walked on. He tried to tell you guys what to do and how you're supposed to conduct yourself before he left. I didn't know that he was going to leave us behind, I said, because, like I said, I had 10 children and 50 grandchildren, 53 great-grandchildren. So that's a lot of people to be responsible for, you know, like, and I shouldn't have that. But I tell them every day, it's because I care about you. I love you. I care about you. Every day something else is coming up, you know, like, and talking to the young kids how to get along, and even, you know, the swearing and stuff like that. I said, you know, your grandpa never ever swore in his life. I never heard him swear. I said, every time you do something that you're not supposed to be doing, you're wrecking your grandpa's name. You're wrecking his name. I said, you guys need to honor your grandfather, even if he's not here. But I tell the younger ones that lost their great-grandfather when they were really young, and they keep asking where he is. And I said, you know, your papa's here, but he's invisible now. He's invisible. He's walking with you, but you can't see him. But he can see you. I said, he can see you. I said, so you guys don't think that Grandpa's not here with you. He's here every day. I just lost a daughter just in January, and that's what I have keep telling her kids, her grandchildren. I said, little girl that's only 4, she kept coming in there every day saying, my mama's in heaven now, isn't she? And I said, yes, Scylla, your mom's in heaven. Mama, she used to call her grandmother Mama. I said, Scylla, you know, your mama's walking with you, but you can't see her. I said, she's invisible. I said, yeah, she's in heaven, but her spirit is still here. I said, she's watching you. Every time you walk into my house, I said, your mama's walking behind you like she did every day. So I just tell the younger kids that when they think about somebody who passed, and they're missing them. You know, they're missing their grandma. Because grandparents are great people, you know, like, I noticed that some of the young people that don't have grandparents around all the time, how different they are, you know, when they don't have that grandparent. Even though the dad is still here, like the dad's still here, or the mom is still here, or it's totally different, because there's this different outlook and how the kids look at their grandparents. They still know that the grandparents are at the authority to tell them how they're supposed to be. And that's what I keep teaching my grandchildren. Even when they come into inheriting something that's passed on from generation to generation, and I tell them, you have to walk clean. You know, whatever you were doing before, you have to clean that up. Your soul, your spirit has to be clean before you walk into that path. And I had to say no one time. My son was asking to bring his son in, and I said to him, I've been watching him. He's not ready. He's not ready. So he's going to have to stay back for a while until he cleans up his act and knows exactly what he's getting into. So I know my son felt bad, like because we had work to do and we were bringing in certain members of our family, and I told my grandson the same thing. I said, your dad wants you to come into this, but I've been watching you, I said, and you're not ready. So I'm going to have to say, sorry, you got to wait. You prove to me that you're going to clean up your act, and you're clean, your whole soul is cleansed, I said to him. Then you're going to come in. He come and hugged me. He cried, but he hugged me and he said, I'm sorry, Grandma. And I said, well, I am too. It hurts me to see you the way you are. So the following year, he cleaned himself up, and I had a memorial in Chilliwack for my late brother, and told my son, okay, your son can come now and dance his uncle out, I said to him, his granduncle. So I went and told him, I said, Eric, get ready. You're going to come in with my brother, I said. Okay, Grandma, okay. So that's the responsibility of us, as old people, like I was really upset when my husband passed away. I used to sit in my room and I'd be saying, Jesus, why the hell did you leave me with all this? And, I know he was ill and everything, but it just, I looked at things that were going to come into my life with all of my family, and I just thought, oh my God, am I going to be able to am I going to make this through, and now the great-grandchildren look at me, like every day, and they run and they help me get up and they help me with whatever I'm doing. And they're just little, hey? Are you okay, great-grandma? And I said, no, I'm hurting. What can we do for you, But that's what I live for every day. I'm happy that I'm still here, and I'm happy that I get to see my kids grow up. I am happy to see my grandchildren get it on their track, and then I'm even happier that I have this time with my great-grandchildren. I'm rich. Not with all the material stuff that everybody thinks is really important in their lives, but I'm rich because I have all these roots. When I look at the kids and they walk in the house, and I'll say them just when they're little and they're just now walking, hi, handsome, and how is the princess today, when the little girls come in. And they walk around like, because you say that to them, hey, hi, handsome, like right away they stand and walk straight, like. And I feel bad for the younger people that can't hold their head up. I really feel bad for the kids that can't hold their head up. And when we bring them into the longhouse, and I say, to them, you're a somebody now. You're not a nobody. You're a somebody. So hold your head up. Be proud. Be proud of who you are and what you're going to be. Hold your head up. Don't put your head down. Don't walk with your head down. Or don't cover up with these sweatshirts that these kids do, and putting their sweatshirts over their head and they're walking along. And who the heck is that going by? I'd say, you know, when I see somebody walking by. Who was that? Oh, that's so-and-so, you know, and they turn around and look. And they say, hi, Grandma. You know, like I said, oh my God, is that you? Why are you walking like that? Take that thing off your head so I know who you are, you know, like. Okay, Grandma, okay. They're not my grandchildren, but, you know, everybody in the whole community calls me Grandma or Auntie, or the older would say, hi, Auntie, you know, like, and I ask the kids, who was that? Even my own great-grandchildren, because I can't see that good. I can see all of you sitting there, but a lot of times I can't see them when they're as far as that. I can see you sitting there, but I don't know who that is sitting there. So I always say when somebody walks by me, I said, who was that went by? Thought it was Eugene. Holy smokes. And then he come back and he said, sorry, great grandma. He comes and hugs me, you know, like, yeah, don't forget to just walk by me like that. And his son did that the other night. He came in the house and he kept running by, and we were having a birthday party, and I said, was that Maxwell? He ran by again, and then he heard me saying that, so he come back and he came and hugged me, and he said, sorry, great grandma, or sorry, Grandma. He said, you know, like, and I said, yeah, you better be sorry, Maxwell. I was wondering who was running by in front of me all the time, and he didn't talk to me. You know, we're given Indian names just like how nephew Greg was. That's how you use those names in the longhouse. And as you know, you see somebody walking in the longhouse, they don't use the English names. They use your Indian name when they see you walking in. But you know, these guys like Greg and all the younger people, they're like that. They call me by my Indian name, even if I'm not in the longhouse, if I'm just wandering around, and they'll say, oh, there goes Lumlumbo with, you know, like. I used to say, you know, everybody says, you know, when you have an Indian name, what does it mean? You know, like the public, you know, what does it mean? You know, like, I said, oh, I don't know. Or elders chose who's going to inherit this name that's been passed on from generation to generation to the young people. And the elders decide, you know, like where that name is going to, who's going to inherit that name. It's just like they watch you for a while, and they think about the person that once, the elder that packed that name before. And they think, oh yeah, that's who that is, you know. Then when it's time to place that name onto the young person, and then they put that name on them, and then they tell them where it comes from and who they're getting that name passed on from, so they know where it comes from and who they're representing now. So that's the way the old people were with all the young people that are. They used to make sure they said, you know, don't drag that name in the dirt, because that person was a siyam mistimuk, what they call a well-acknowledged person. Don't drag it in the dirt. That means don't dirty that name. You hold it up and don't do things you're not supposed to be doing, because you come from that real high society person that carried that name before. So that's what they do to the young people when they place that name, that Indian name, onto each one of us when we're ready to take that on as a responsibility to represent somebody that in the past that had that name. So that happens in the longhouse. They put up a great big gathering and invite thousands of people, and these people get to witness that name being passed on to whoever is going to inherit that name. So these are the things that happen in our longhouse when you pass on something that you inherit, like the kid's granny over here, you know, like she cleans the floor and gets the floor ready for the new ones that are coming to the longhouse and being initiated. She'll bless the floor and put feathers, duck feathers all over the whole floor. So when that new one is coming in, standing up, they dance around that whole floor in those feathers to make their feet light. And it's blessed for that person only at that time. So everybody inherits something, like the grandfathers and the uncles and every one of the people have something that they inherit from their elders in the past. They get to go out and pick a tree for the new ones that are coming into the longhouse, and that longhouse bless the tree before they take it out of the earth. And certain people can do that, and not everybody. You can't just pick him and say, go get that tree out of the ground there and bring it over here. It has to be special people that has been passed on from generation to generation, and only those people that would inherit that from their ancestors can do that. Not just anybody. Not I can do that. My kids do. My sons, my grandchildren have that knowledge, and they have the words they have to use, the Indian words they have to use when they go out there and pick that tree up right at dusk before it's even daybreak. They bless that earth, they bless that tree, and thank that earth for that life they're taking out of the earth. So everybody in the whole community is passed on something from each generation to generation. Not just everybody has that knowledge, so it's just when I go to the correctionals of BC, I go into the places where all these young people are confined, and I've been asked to go there, and I talked about how I met this young man that found me and got me to go be part of the correctionals to talk to young people like this, and they said, how did you ever come into something like that? And I said, it wasn't my choice, like, even though I don't mind being here, but it wasn't my choice. I said, I met a man over the phone. He phoned and he said, Mrs. Pelkey, are you Doreen Pelkey? Yeah? Well, you don't know me, but my name is Robert. My name is Robert, he said, like Harrison. And he works for Correctionals Canada. Oh yeah, can I come down and visit you sometime? And I said, I guess so. Okay, I'm on my way anyway. I'm on the ferry. He said, I'm coming over from the mainland, I'm coming on the ferry. He said, I'll be there in maybe half an hour or so. He said, I'll get there. Okay. So he walked in the house there, in my house, and I told him where to go and which place to turn and to get to my place, and came in, and he was packing this drum. And he said, you're probably wondering how I got your name, he said, and your phone number and everything. He said, it's on that drum. And he said, and I'm bringing it back. I said, oh my God, where'd you get that? He said, well, I went to a hawk shop, he said, I look at pound shops, he said, and I went to this pound shop and I looked at that drum and I thought, oh my God, that's a good drum. And this guy's from Saskatoon and he doesn't know very much about, like drumming or singing, or they have their own way of doing things way up in the interior, different from us. And he said, I figured since you put your name in there and you put the phone number and everything, I figured this is really important to somebody, he said. So you're the somebody, he said, and I brought this back to you. I bought it in the pound shop, he said. And I said, holy smokes. And I said, oh, and he told me, and then I went in my room and I started digging around for something to thank him for bringing a drum back to me. So I found some things that I thought that would be benefit him on his road trips all the time. So I come out with this stuff and I put it down like in front of him. We're sitting like that, and he said, no. Thank you anyway, he said. But you know what? You can sing me a song, he said to me. Sing me a song, he said, like, I want to know what you do with this, he said, like in our country, he said, our territory, very seldom the women are the drummers, he said. And I figured since you have a drum and you're a lady, he said, like, and that's really something, he said, like. So I was wondering if you could just sing me a song and then I'll just leave you, he said, like, and I said, oh yeah. Okay. So I sat there and sang him a song, and thank you, he said, thank you. But you'll be hearing from me, he said, you'll be hearing from me. I'm going to call you back sometime. So he did, and he asked me to come into the penitentiaries in the Fraser Valley one time. Would you be willing to come over and, talk to people just like this? They have them on the circle, like the inmates, they put them in a circle and you talk to them. They introduce themselves, just like, that's something we didn't do this afternoon, but they introduce themselves and say where they're from, and that's about all they tell about themselves. We don't ask them why they're there or, what their purpose of being confined, eh? But a lot of them were really, really in tears by the time I left, like, and they said, could you be our grandma? I said, sure. I'd be proud to have you as a I said, I have lots of grandchildren, but you know what? I said, I always welcome people who are lost. I had 10 children, but I and my husband raised like about 30 or 40 other children besides our own that were struggling in their lives, that lost parents, or they came from alcoholic parents, or we took these children in and raised a whole bunch of other children besides our own. So because of the way we grew up, I and my husband with grandparents, and they talked about the word that Greg was talking about helping one another, their title for, helping one another. And that's the way we are, when you see somebody that's struggling in their lives, like you want to help them. Even today, with all my children growing up, my oldest daughter is 61 years old, and my youngest is 49. So in between that and their children, each one of them have, like 12 or 14 grandchildren already, so that just multiplies into, and then the great-grandchildren. The grandchildren have children. And it just multiplies into a mega big family that when we have a dinner, we have to have a place like this. We celebrate birthdays, we have Christmases together, we all have Christmas together, our whole family, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, my children, and have 3 turkeys. I said, how do you remember all those people? And I said, well, I see them all the time. You know, I see them all the time. So I only have one daughter in Vancouver, and her kids come whenever they're out of school or holidays, Christmas, they're all here. As soon as holidays come up, they're here. And the one in Duncan is the same thing through the whole summer holidays. Her grandchildren and her kids are here with the whole works of our family. They're just together all the time, you know, like they want to be together all the time. So I remember their names, you know. I don't remember all the birthdays, but just my children and some of my grandchildren, I remember their birthdays, but not all of them. But I know we're celebrating all the time. Yeah, all the time. So I'll just finish up by, I don't know how much time that our friend has chosen for us to be all sitting. I know some of you have other things that you're doing, so I'll just say thank you for allowing me to be here, and I'll close whenever I'll close with a song after we're finished. Yeah.
It's difficult to share anything when you look at that form of teaching and the stories and the children and the families and communities. There's so much in the way of, you're talking about the land, the things that we belong to and that belong to us, the teachings that come with it. I think you know, when you look at what Doreen has provided, that applies to all the Coast Salish people. And when you look at what she was talking about Sanu, wearing that teaching. Then it was Snake, even Soleno, would say that she really wears that teaching. Well, just to follow up and to add to that, I guess the appreciation that we have to be reminded of, I guess we're reminded, us from the territory, we're reminded of what we need to do to respect not only the longhouse, and you know now that many of the most powerful teachings come from the longhouse. There's a respect that and support that the coming together to help one another in the longhouse. I've told you that story about all the responsibilities of the longhouse, and everyone knows that. I think when you look at the understanding and the teaching and the knowledge of the longhouse and how disciplined it is in there, and then you come out and follow it. So you look at all of that, Doreen, the mama would never cease to do amazement. She talks about all her grandchildren and names them. 52 grandchildren, 52 grandchildren. Great-grandchildren. You know, and I think that, I guess the caring and sharing that she's displayed, not only with her family, but the people that, you know, that's a nice story to hear about your drum. You know, and how that's returned. That doesn't happen very often. So I think that really tells you what kind of person the Lama is in terms of her belief. She talks about beliefs. The belief of what happened. She mentioned, the respect she has for different denominations, religions and things, but the belief of the Lama. I think, you know, when you share that, not too many people understand the Lama. But if the experience is ever given to you, you'll understand the strength of the longhouse. And she mentioned, yes, there was 3 of us. My 2 brothers were initiated into steering. And it's true, they looked after us, the family, the Pelkey family. They come down like every day and sat with us and supported us. And they got some stories to tell, but that sort of was within the community, what happened with it anyway. But I think the beauty and the fun part of that, the discipline that was picked up, because she talked about the naming ceremonies, when you're given a name, to respect that name. And when she said, yeah, those names are handed down to the families. They stay within the family, you know, like you wear that, and you respect it. The respect that it had years ago and years ago. I guess the beauty of that is still there, and we take it for granted.
That's right.
We know, and it's really nice to hear that. We're taking that, again, taking that responsibility to share those things with you. Might be a little bit difficult to understand some of the things that was shared with you, but there's a lot of commonalities. There's a lot of commonalities. When you look at our relatives from Siena, Bert and Lavina, that have come down to support, and Chelimet, he likes to be called Wild Bill. Bill White from Nanaimo Cowichan has come down. And we have our relative from Laquaman, Darlene Joseph, who's working at University of Life. And of course we have Yakuchi here. That's come down to listen to some of the things and the teachings of our people in the Coast Salish territory. We also have a visitor from Cowichan as well, who's a member of the Spirit Drummers and Singers from Cowichan. There's a lot of them. So we look at that, you know, this is what they call Tse Tsa Watle. Everybody coming together to listen to the teaching, to remember those stories in terms of when we talk about respect. So we look at, I guess, the importance and the connection that we have with different people, institutions, organizations, agencies. If I could tell that story sometime, Doreen, I'm going to, if that's okay with you, about your drum.
Sure.
You know, that's something to me is a big respect when something's returned back to you. And that connection was made with that institution over the interior. So you look at the connection we have with the different communities in Coast Salish territory. Now we have Yakuchi down here. We're very appreciative of their interest to come down and sit and listen. We also have the staff here. We want to thank you for coming down, our visitors for coming down to listen. You know, you have a heavy schedule, but you've left that schedule to come down to listen to the teachings. These are the Tse Tsa Watle. You know, it's so true. Like, we understand that. We wear that. We don't just talk about it. She shared that. She really told me about family, the importance of family. And when we look at that, we have the two elders from Beecher Bay, you know, that have been leaders within their communities. I think my cousin, Bert Charles, was chief for his community for 42 years. You know, that experience in there. And not only within the leadership, but within the Chuck Island, the big house, the longhouse. Of course, Lavina, you know, Lavina spent a lot of time with her family, took a lot of teachings. Who taught us that Nick in the Swallow Nick in the Huckamine of Eastern Johnson. She speaks fluent the Saanich language and the Cowichan language. And we got out there to visit them, to Teclesh and invite them back here. The teaching was they provided a tea and refreshment for us. And as the story went, there was somebody that was fasting, didn't eat. And when you're given something you're supposed to eat, whatever it is, they always told us that. So that's another reminder, whatever they put in front of you, we'll talk with you. You have to eat it. So that was the teaching. And you look at that teaching, that's always with the older people that understand it and know it and use it. They're giving you something when you go to the place. All that. Ancestral. Medicine. Encouragement. Teaching. But I really want to thank you, Lamlama, with Then was lean with it in a swallow. Asa. So what makes the swallow was lean in a swallow hot. Lemons eat. There's no way it was hot with them. Was quite a make in a slacking. They talk niet in de image. Moet je eat. Oh, doe goeie net. Terwijl ik heb, It was difficult to listen to that, you know, when you think about those memories. She talks about that very positively about her late husband. Her late husband and his her grandchildren. Dan moet je, dan kweeg hem niet te 12. Hoe kweeg hem niet te 12? Hoe zie je hem te 12? Hoe zie je hem te 12? Those words are good. We thank you for sharing them and reminding us, us younger people.
Very young.
But I was, yeah, when you were talking about the return to your drumming, you sang a song. And I got ready for you to sing that song. So in closing, I thank everyone for coming here this afternoon, today, our visitors. And I think we're going to spend a little bit more time with Alfred, and Mitchell, and Jody, and Wendy. So thank you for taking the time out. Isabel, Heiska, thank you for coming down here, sitting with us. Gil, thank you for the trip. Thank you. Phil? Oh, this Ray Peters. Grandson. Ray Peters' grandson. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming down and sit and listening to that. Who taught us me? You understand those teachings. It's good to be reminded to keep given more. And that's another policy, is that you never stop listening to that teaching. I think Doreen has expressed that. There's no end to what you've just heard. There's no end to it. So if someone takes the time to give you that teaching, you take it. Because if you happen to turn them away, they'll never provide that to you again. That's very strong discipline. But you also heard another one. Also with Sai, you're not ready yet. It's really nice to hear. That's not easy to do.
No, it isn't.
That's not easy to do. Well, Tse Tsa Watle, I thank you for that teaching. When you know your young one is not ready yet, you tell them. And when the time is right, then they know and understand. Yako was Sai,
Yeah.
the Nessalem.
Yeah.
The elder people say, no, they're ready now. So, hi, Chair, Hi, to Tse Tsa Watle. To move to eat, to see up in squall. It is no way. And it's well, who taught us. You clean out 2 stars and meet them as well. So I just want to thank you again. I think we're ready for your song now, Doreen.
Oh, yeah.
The closing song. Thank you, Virginia McKendry, for all that you've done. So we just wanted, when you close, we'd like to have you close this.
Is that the closing now?
Yeah.
Oh.
I,
So you let these guys go scot-free? Yeah. This microphone's gonna be, I think, a little bit, just put on the floor. I talked about our different things that are passed on from our grandparents and our grandparents, you know, like we get things passed on to us. We have songs that we inherit also from our elders, our grandparents and our great-grandparents that we don't use for the longhouse. We have a praying song like Greg was talking about, Ray Peters' grandson who's sitting down there. He's also our family. He's Ray is uncle to my husband. So these kids are his nephews here, even though he's that young. That's his nephew here, sitting here. That's the way it goes. Yeah, because even though, like Ray's late father and Gabe's grandmother were brother and sister, so his grandmother and Ray's dad were brother and sister. So Ray became the uncle to Gabe, even though Gabe was older than him in age, in age. But he was still elder because he was Jones Peters' son. And Gabe's grandmother was the sister to Jones Peters. And that's the way we talk to our grandchildren too, like with his kids. He had kids that were at a younger age than our great-grandchildren. So our great-grandchildren call his boys and his daughter auntie and uncle because he had kids at a later time, him and Rachel and Sandra and Lorna Doone. So those kids, even though they're younger than the great-grandchildren, but that's their uncle. So when Andrew comes along, Lorna's son, and he's 2 boys and the girl, I'd say that's your uncle, Uncle Maxwell, even though they're older than the great-grandchildren. So that's the way we teach our kids how to respect, their family tree, like what I'm saying to Ray's grandson there. That's how we acknowledge each other. And like I said, the songs are passed, like they're honoring songs like Our Family from Couch, and they have different songs for different purposes. And we have songs for the church, we have songs for different honoring songs and praying songs, and we don't use them in the longhouse. They're the only songs that we can sing for the public, not the songs that we use in the longhouse, or not the songs that we use for mask dancers. We have songs for masks, and we don't sing that in public. It's only used when the work is going on and when our family's blessing someone, and we use that, but we don't use it all the time. My song is a praying song, and like I was saying, that this man said this drum must have been important. And that's right, because us women, we don't make drums, or it has to be very seldom you see a woman drumming. But I was one from the oldest of my family, and I was allowed to drum and have a drum. So one time I was in place called Chehalis over in mainland there, and my family were doing mask dances, and I was there, so I was the oldest in the family, so they said, I want you out there, Auntie, because you're the oldest that owns this song, so I want you to get out there and stand with your nieces and your nieces out there. And I said, oh, I don't have a drum. Well, okay, I'll go grab one. So he went and got it. When I left that big house, and my nephew came over and he put it in my hand and he said, it's yours, and I said, oh, wow. And then I went up to Port Alberni and the same thing happened. They passed on a drum to me too, so. She said, we need to hear you sing now. So I'm gonna back up a little bit because I don't want to be too close to this. This is a prayer song. Heavenly Father, we ask you to come before you to give thanks to the ones that are at the table, O Lord. We thank you, Lord, for bringing all the visitors and all the members of the family together at this table, O Lord. We give thanks to even the ones that are gone before us, O Lord, for the elders that have gone before us or sitting, listening, and watching us. We give thanks also to them. Lord, we thank you for the ones that are ill, our families that are struggling in their lives on alcohol and drugs, oh Lord. We ask you to touch each one of them, oh Lord, and show them the way out and lead them out of the despair they're going through, Lord. We're asking you this in the name of Jesus.
just wonder though, are we quite done? Do people want to talk a little bit before we go, or are we ready to go?
Any questions?
My mother never explained the meaning of her Indian name, Longhouse. That means child of lightning. My uncle from Stalo told us that name came from around 1530 to 1550, where one of our relatives in Hope, a woman was used to go out to the woods to have their baby and hang on to a tree when they were giving birth. And the tree was struck by lightning when she was out there. And she died, but the baby lived. And that's where my mom's name came from, the child of lightning. So that was the birth of her name. I just wanted to share that.
Nice try.
Anybody else have any comments or questions before we get going? Please.
I just wanted to thank you very much. Came in with a heavy heart today. Your words.
Nice try. Cheers.
Doreen, I would just like to echo that. I really, back in my own life, and I had 3 sets of grandparents, but none of them were available to me for various reasons. And yeah. And then I see my whole life looking forward to other older people, always looking for older people to be around, but never knowing who the wise people were. And if you're looking for new grandchildren, I'll sign up on that list. So I think that is very wise. That's an intercultural piece. I think another universal piece, like the drum, you know, is that need for the second generation to have a connection to the generation, not just their parents, but to the older people who have time for them, who have nothing but love to give, have done all the work of raising a family already, and now are there to be teachers, right? So that's what I really took away from today as a profound truth in my life, and I think something I'd like to keep in mind as I provide a place for education for people in this school. To be that voice, that voice of understanding. I loved what you talked about with the longhouse, that it's a place to honor youth, not to shame them, not a prison, a place to actually show this person him or herself, and to say, aren't you a beautiful thing? Aren't you a wonderful soul? And I would like to, in any work I do, create a space like that for people. A place of discipline, but a place of real appreciation and love. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hold on.
Okay.
I would also like to thank for sharing today, and to you, Greg, and for everyone for welcoming our guests from the Kuchik. It's been a good journey to be here with them today, and to have the opportunity to provide a sense of your own community, your own family, and your own traditions. And people say it's just been coming from you is very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very good to see you here. Or even Lorraine and Eric. It's good to see you here again.
Thank you. Thank you.
See ya. Now I know why my mom and my Auntie Irene and Auntie Chili loved you so much. It's the first time I've had a chance to hear you. I knew when we were traveling down here for any of your work, they said very quietly, oh, it's Doreen's work. And then they were really quiet. We had to be quiet all the way coming down. My goodness. Oh, it's wonderful to listen to you. Like my cousin Greg, I just about cried when you were talking to your grandchildren about your husband and having to be good.
Yeah.
It was so powerful to hear that. I almost cried myself listening to them. I was thinking how wonderful it is for your children to have their mother still around to share all of these teachings. And I really want to thank you for covering us with this greatness, this old teachings, this powerful teachings about being clean and being strong
Yeah.
and holding ourselves in a good way. I think it's really important to share it with our relatives from the north who would benefit from. This is a very unusual occasion, dear ones. I'm going to call you relatives, to hear this kind of teaching coming forth. It's so powerful. One of the oldest, most highly trained people in our territories is covering you with these teachings. We know, I'm going to finish now, but we know that where you come from is the oldest part of this province. Teachings and rituals and ceremony as old as time itself. And ritual, people foretelling the future. That was the great gift from the little time that I spent in your territory. And so I'm really glad you were able to benefit from this wonderful, wonderful teachings. Thank you for the invitation.
Right, Scott. Thank you.
Okay, Alfred?
I got some notes, I'm taking some notes too, which I gotta take home. They're taking visual documentaries and stuff like that. You may know every individual have different point of view, different feelings we have for ourselves, individual selves. And when we get home, we'll put it all together and compare notes and see what we could come up with to enhance better education in our territory. And you know, some things that are he said, you said, I'd like more really ask you to be more specific. On nations, like you said, every nation we have our own thing going, our own spiritual beliefs and stuff like that. And to control what we have within ourselves. Could you, how can we control that? How can we? And she says, where I was born is who I am, which is a bit in me. I'm speaking of me. And the power of what you are calling, you know, like the song you just sang. You know, my belief into, I don't want to go into a branch or I want to hurt individual medicine man or medicine, you know. Say something that slap you, that's for example. Yeah. I have some elders that really believe the way you do at home. And they send me because they think I can get out of a job better than they can. Or maybe I'm just a sucker that do that, you know. Do I make myself clear? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alfred. Response to, I guess the teaching, when it comes to teaching, we all understand it within the communities. We all understand the naming, the ceremonies, the teachings. And when it's announced, we live it and practice it. And I agree, in terms of the teachings, we've got to be a little bit more specific. Why the names are carried, why the songs are sung, why they use the fires in the longhouse, like all of that. I mean, there's a limit to where we can go, but I think you're right. We'll be more specific in terms of like the direct teaching, understanding, and respect. I think that's the big word, respect. And the belief we have in our teachings, particularly with the longhouse. There's many more ceremonies that we didn't talk about. But because of the limitation, the amount of time we have to speak. And with the short amount of time that was provided here, I think we were given a lot today. We were given a lot of teachings and reminders. And I think that I really appreciate Eric talking about the name Lamamawit. Because it's really important and how it was given and why it was given. She explained that. She did. And Eric to give the history of it. So in terms of being specific, yes, you're right. But, it really comes down to the idea of providing some information for a little bit of a better understanding of the people that are working here and how it could be utilized in the future. I think in that sense, like, you're right, Alfred. Thank you very much for that question in terms of being a little more specific. Because that teaching, and I think but it's not going to change. That's how we're taught, by stories, by giving, this is what you're going to do. This is your purpose in life. When you talk about leadership, the mama would talk about it. This is what you're going to be given. You're watching, observing. You're going to be a singer, a drummer, a schnab, an Indian doctor, provider. Like that's all we're watching. And I think it really comes down to when you sit and we don't mess with other people's medicine. We don't mess with other people's medicine. Like if this is the job that we're given, we take it. Like this job, meaning being a speaker, a fireman, a cook, a dancer, we do this. Now for the other people that do work to help you, they are taught and trained specifically for that, so we allow them to do that. We allow them to look after a healing, a direct healing. Well, I want to reflect back on what Doreen was saying. She says, we sing for everybody in the longhouse. It's true, everybody gets up and sings for each other, got individual songs. One of the most important things she didn't really talk about is her ability to sing all of the songs. She knew a lot of songs and she knows a lot of songs to help the individuals in there. Many times they're singing and they're having a difficult time. And she goes there and she sings with them. Everybody falls. Everybody falls. So I think that's important as well. When you talk about being specific, I think we watched that for years and years and years. And I really appreciate that. I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you did help many different families with the singing and the drumming. I guess that's the mind, that's the strong mind. Follow a clear mind to remember that. Well, we really appreciate that because a lot of those individuals that go in there and release. She talked about that release in the big house. And that's got to be done in a fashion that someone knows how to look at it. That's what she was saying. So I appreciate that one. And thank you. Because there's many times that's affected us as individuals. But she was always there to support and help and fix up those songs that she helped. So thank you, Alfred, thank you for standing up to talk about what you observed. And I want to encourage, I guess, all of us that are here to continue on. And thank you again, Doreen and Eric, for coming down. Bert and Lavina was kind of giving a hand signal to Bert and Lavina, and they both shook their heads, so. Kind of shy, like
They were on the hot seat.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
But just to encourage everyone to continue on. And thank you, Greg Cran, Mr. Cran, for coming down to sit with us as well. You know, like Greg, and I have worked and done a few things together, and I have a few, I won't tell a story. We've had a few things. Well, thank you very much, and our cameraman is Dave. Is that Dave? Thank you, Dave, for your time, for coming to sit with us. And all of the ones that have come down from college, and Tim from Seattle. Tim, you're from Seattle? You're working in Seattle?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for coming down and spending the time, and he's a graphic
I'm a graphic facilitator, and my Coast Salish name is Starbucks, and that is nose for coffee. That was given to me by Brian Clousby, who's Swedish, so. Because I brought them Starbucks coffee one time. Ted Sure. So he doesn't let me forget that.
These guys done that to one of the employees of our band too, Council, gave him an Indian name, and when I came into the band office one day and he was saying, Grandma, I got an Indian name. You know, like, and I said, oh my God, you got an Indian name. What's your name? Quinny, he said. And I said, oh my God. And he looked at me and he said, what does that mean? I said, you're a scavenger. He goes, wow. Because every time there was somebody cooking for whatever occasion, there was having a meeting or whatever, and they'd have lunch and he'd be running over there. Even if he wasn't invited, he would still, but he worked, he worked there. He always looked hungry all the time. He doesn't work there, but he works, he's got his own employment now, and when I see him down Sydney, a place called Sydney, and he comes running over, hi, Grandma, he says that, and he's a white man, hey, like, and never days look at my grandchildren. How did that happen? You know, like this white man calling you Grandma. I said, because he's got no grandma. He wanted to have a grandma, so he just called me Grandma, I said. But he worked in our band, and that's what they called him, Quinny.